reservations I had weren't going to cause me any problems. That was my biggest fear. We tried looking ourselves, and it was hard to find places and hard to tell exactly where they were in relation to the Camino and the town. And I was reminded about it, with that movie, The Way, that came out, and a couple of other films. As difficult as I thought it was, but I had used a service that made the reservations for us. Did have some sort of issue, you could call them and they would help you figure it out. I highly recommend this, having your luggage transferred forward, which was part of our package. So we only had to carry what we needed for the day in our little day pack. Definitely recommend researching footwear. Yes, everyone's happy. I never saw anyone having an argument, or everyone was just so happy. There were groups of people that were just singing.
Hello, Pilgrims. This is Efrain from Camino Wonders, the Way to Your White podcast. And we have here today a new guest that is, her name is Jan. And she actually did the Camino Frances from Sarria recently. And we're going to be talking to her about her experience at the Camino. So, hello, Jan. How are you doing today?
Hi, I'm just great.
Okay, that's pretty good to hear. And thank you very much for joining us today at the Way to Your White podcast. So, the first question that I have for you, how did you find out about the Camino de Santiago?
I first heard about it from a lovely man who runs an Airbnb in Arles, in Provence, the La Virgin Rouge, and he was doing the Camino section by section because he couldn't, take enough time off to do the whole thing. And that was about 6 years ago, I think. And I just thought it sounded really interesting. And then I was reminded about it, with that movie, The Way, that came out, and a couple of other films that I saw. And I wanted to take a trip that was meaningful. And at first I thought I was just going to go alone, because I just felt like going on a trip and no one was available that I usually travel with. And I thought that, this going on the Camino would have a purpose, and I wouldn't just be going somewhere and, killing time and sightseeing. And I told my friend I usually travel with about it, Gina, and then she decided she was going to work some way to get off work, and so she came with me.
Okay.
So we went for a week in Provence at my friend's Airbnb, just to kind of get acclimated, because we're from Hawaii, and it's about 6,000 miles and a 12-hour time difference, and we didn't want to start our pilgrimage jet lag.
Yeah, because it's 12 hours different, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, that's a lot. And then from the time that you find out about the Camino de Santiago that you mentioned, that was 6 years ago, and now this year that you just did the Camino, any reason why it take 6 years from the time that you find out until the time that you did the Camino?
Well, even 6 years, I'm 66, even 6 years ago, I kind of thought, well, that's nice for people who are younger, but I don't know if I would be able to do it. And so I'd kind of just, set it to the side. But then I started thinking more about it, and I thought, no, I want this challenge. I wanted to challenge myself.
Okay. And now that you did the Camino, did you see that you were in good condition to do the Camino, or how do you feel while you were doing the Camino?
Well, yes, coincidentally, I managed to strain my back in France with my ridiculously large piece of luggage. And so I had some back spasms throughout the trip, but they put a little damper on things, but didn't really impact my ability to do the Camino. And I had trained before I went, mostly, to build up some stamina, but also to try out different kinds of footwear, because I wanted to make sure that the footwear options I had weren't going to cause me any problems. That was my biggest fear, that my feet were going to get sore or tired or damaged. And there were a couple of days that were 17 and 18 miles, and I was tired at the end of the
Okay.
day, but it wasn't anything very challenging. And there's plenty of places, as you know, to stop and rest. Um, and even though it's like 18 miles, it really only takes about 5 or 6 hours. Um,
Okay.
so there's plenty of time to rest and eat and go at your own pace.
Okay. And any particular training that you did while you were in Hawaii before doing the Camino? What kind of training did you do?
Well, despite their misgivings, I would have friends drop me off, like 12 miles from home, then walk
Okay.
home. Uh, I live on the Big Island near Volcano National Park, which has lots of trails. So Gina and I would go on trails, and my boyfriend would go too, and uh, just trying to figure out, a 13, 14 mile hike and just try to do it.
Okay.
Uh,
And for how long did you train? How long?
well, I started 2 months ahead of time, but
Okay.
I only did maybe 6 major walks.
Okay. Okay. And then once you arrived to the Camino, you say that you first arrived to France, and from France you traveled to Santiago, correct? Or to Sarria.
Yes, to Madrid.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So once you arrived to Sarria, and then after you sleep in the were you staying in a hotel or in an albergue?
It was more of a hotel.
Okay, hotel. Okay. And then during those nights that you spent at the hotel, the different hotels on the different towns, how was that experience for you?
It wasn't as difficult as I thought it was, but I had used a service that made the reservations for us.
Okay.
So, we tried looking ourselves, and it was hard to find places and hard to tell exactly where they were in relation to the Camino and the town. So we used a service to book our stays. So we knew ahead of time exactly where we would be staying. And we tried not to use our electronics too much on the walk, but we would know, put in the address, and we'd have directions right to where we were staying. It was never a problem to find the places. It was pretty easy. The places were all, I had a choice of different levels of lodging, and I chose a mid-level. Um,
Okay.
and they were basic, but they were all clean and safe and easy to access.
Okay. And how about the people that were on those hotels? How did they treat you? Did they treat you well? So anything that you would like to comment about the service that they provided?
Most of them treated us well. It was a little different. Um, I mean, some were kind of a combination, a barge and a hotel, and they didn't always have, someone right there at the front desk.
Okay.
Maybe they were in the bar, or somewhere nearby. But
Okay.
they would come right away and check you in, and a couple of people helped us with our bags, and gave us tips and pointers, and got our stamps on our passports.
Okay. And did you get your passport full of stamps? Fill it out?
Oh, it is. I have it right here. It's all full of stamps.
Oh, that's really nice. That's a good memory.
Yes, because I
So,
do remember most of them. I remember, there was a bagpiper, and uh, a man doing art, and yeah, it was a
yeah, there
nice to
are
stop and get. I didn't
yeah, there are
I didn't
different kind of
always stop, depending on how many people were. Sometimes there's kind of a line for the stamps, but there's always a stamp around around the bend.
Okay. And what about the food? So was it good food that you have on the restaurant? How was it?
Well, I wasn't real excited about food. Um, it was a lot of the same thing. Uh, uh, cheese and meats and bread. And I'm not into pastries too much, but we did have some octopus,
Okay.
um, which I'd had before. But um, the breakfasts we chose a plan that included breakfast, which
Okay.
just made it easier. It was usually right, in where your lodging was. Sometimes went a few doors down to a cafe or something. But it just made it easier to not have to wonder where you're going to eat and,
Okay.
paying for it and everything. Um, no, it was good quality food. One thing I would do different at the beginning, I would pack, some stuff in my little pack because and I highly recommend this, having your luggage transferred forward, which was part of our package. So we only had to carry what we needed for the day in our little day packs. But
Okay.
I would always bring food. And, you don't really need to bring food. You can, but there's so many places to stop along the way. And then you usually want to stop and rest. And it's also a good time to socialize and meet other pilgrims.
Okay. And did you meet a lot of pilgrims from other countries while you were walking?
Yes. Yeah, met people from uh, France and Spain, of course, and Mexico, the U.S. I talked to people from Great Britain, Ireland, and England, and uh, Germans. Yeah, lots of people.
Yeah, there is
It,
a lot of people. And I don't know if you know, if you are aware, but this year it looks like the number of pilgrims that got the Compostela or are getting the Compostela is going to be close to 500,000 pilgrims
wow,
during the 2024. 2023 were about 446,000. So that means that it's an increase of 50, almost 54,000 if that happened. Right now, the number is about 486,000.
wow.
So and what about, do you have any barrier with the language?
No, I speak a little Spanish, but
Okay.
along the Camino, it was never an issue.
Okay.
Sometimes it helps when you're reading a menu, but you
Okay.
can also look it up on your phone if you don't know what it is. But no, it wasn't. And I remember one time I asked someone that I had thought I heard her speaking Spanish about what this architectural feature was. I don't know if you noticed along the way, there were those rectangular, about 2 feet wide structures that were raised up off of the ground, and they usually had some sort of ornate trim on the ends, and they were kind of all over the place, as it turned out. And so I asked a lady, and then she said, I don't speak English. And then she said, English, English, does anyone speak English? And someone comes right up, another pilgrim, and explained that they were for storing grain.
Okay.
So,
Yeah.
but no, language was never a barrier. I
Yeah,
was really
that's,
surprised.
yeah, that's good. So, and then, so would you recommend to somebody else to do the Camino?
Definitely. I actually have a group of friends who are going in May. And then, I posted my journey on Facebook, and a lot of friends were saying, oh my God, if I knew you were going, I would have wanted to have gone. And, I had mixed feelings. I kind of wanted, because, it was for me a journey to kind of just reconnect with myself,
Okay.
and not I have a busy small business, and it involves interacting with a lot of people, and you just get drawn into your friends and your boyfriends and other people's lives, and it was just a time to just disconnect from all of that and reconnect with me, And after all of of course, we'd been to France, after all the planes, trains, and automobiles and Ubers and everything that we had been, oh, we got to get here, we got to get there, we got to get here. It was so nice to just be able to just walk, that you were going to be walking for a week and not have to deal with any of that.
Yeah. The Camino is an amazing adventure because you have the time to think about yourself because you are walking, and
Right.
when you are walking, you have plenty of time.
At first, I got a little scared, thinking, "Well, what am I going to get bored? What am I going to think about all day?" And I'm just going to end up thinking about my clients and my cats and what's going on at home. And that was never the case because there's so many interesting things to see and people walking past and wildlife. I saw a weasel. I'd never seen a weasel before in my life.
Okay.
Donkeys and horses, and I like cats, and there were lots of cats along the way. My friend Gina is at least 10 years younger than me, and has more stamina, and some days, we wouldn't even really walk together exactly, and some days we would. And I'd always tell her, just feel free to go ahead. And sometimes she'd send me pictures of cats she saw along the way. It's like,
Okay.
okay, in 15 minutes, you're going to see this cat. And sure enough, I would see the cat she'd sent me a picture of. It was a lot of fun. We were, you'd walk into some a little place to eat, and people sitting there you talked to earlier would yell, "Hey!" And we would wave, and you get to, well, you guys, you get to run into the same people, over and over. And it was interesting to me trying to, uh, some people were obviously family groups.
Okay.
The guy from London was traveling with his son. This guy from Ireland I spoke to, every year all the first cousins would get together and meet for some sort of trip, and this is what they had chosen to do that year. Um, and it's just interesting, the people that just walk up next to you and you start talking, and um, but I was glad that I traveled with a friend because it's just easier to, and it's nice to say, "Hey, look at that," or "Did you see this?" Or um, but even if you went alone, and I did talk with a lot of people who were traveling alone, uh, it's safe, it's easy, you have companionship. Um, either way, with other people or alone, it's a great experience.
Yeah, because even if people are alone walking, they're gonna find somebody else, and they're gonna start
Yeah,
talking with another people.
right. And I never ever felt unsafe or worried about anything. Um, and again, it was nice. I never had to utilize it, but it was nice knowing that you were working with a service that, if you did have some sort of issue, you could call them and they would help you figure it out.
Okay. And at some point, did you get lost?
No, never more than like a block, in a town where you just weren't sure starting out in the morning, because there's all the arrows and the markers. And usually, there's some other people that you can see that are obviously, have their walking sticks and their packs, and you just figure that's what they're doing and follow them. Um, no, I was never concerned about getting lost.
Yeah, and I imagine that you find a lot of signs, arrows, the yellow arrow, and the shells that
Right,
tell you where to go.
exactly. And how far it's left, how far is left to go.
Yes, yes. Sometimes that part, because there are a lot, it's better not to see because you don't want to know exactly how many miles or kilometers
Right.
are left. Because sometimes, like every
Yeah,
100 meters, 200 meters, so it's like a too
I know.
frequent.
Yeah, I would try not to look sometimes just so it would be good news when I did.
Yeah. And did the Camino meet your expectations?
Yes, it was. Well, like I said, I'd watched a couple of movies. One one was called Three Caminos, Tres Caminos. It was actually a Spanish language, I think a Spanish film, which was really good, which tracked a group of people on going on meeting up for three different Caminos. So you got to see a lot of, what the towns were like. Of course, uh, yeah, I would say it was pretty much what I expected. There were uh, times where you didn't see anybody, depending on where you were. You could look forward and back and not see anyone. And there were times when you were walking with big groups of people. I think I was surprised how many places there were to stop, and eat and get something to drink and use the restroom. Um, so that was the only kind of pleasant surprise, was that there were lots of services. But
Yeah.
it's not like, you're walking down the highway by a strip mall or something. They're tiny, quaint little places.
Yeah, the pretty much are restaurants, most of them restaurants, bars, little hotels. That what you find through the Camino, and maybe a small people, artisans that sell some stuff from that they made over there. That's what I pretty much see. It was the same that what you see.
Uh-huh. Yes, I forget where it was, but we stopped and there was a really nice man who made actually I have a little scallop shell earring
Oh, it's nice.
and an anklet, but I'm not going to stick my foot up in the camera. And
Okay,
he made, this scallop shell, which of course is a symbol of the Camino, and he made this
okay,
jewelry. And so we got some jewelry for him, and then he gave us a little uh, rose quartz stone to carry with us. And when we first left Sarria, the scallop shell is a symbol, and most people get an actual scallop shell that's
okay,
decorated, that they tie onto their pack, and we didn't have our scallop shells yet. And we stepped into the shop, and there was this ancient man. It was kind of like a little antique shop, but he sold the shells, and he sold us the shells. He didn't really speak any English, but it wasn't an issue. And then he insisted on tying them onto our packs correctly. And then
okay,
before we headed out, he took his hands and patted each of us on the face and said, Buen Camino. And
okay.
it was just so touching. It was a lovely start, to the journey.
Oh, that yeah, that's really nice. And then so and another questions. So once you return back, you mentioned that you post some information about the Camino with your friends and all that. I have heard that once somebody do the Camino, it's so emotional to do the Camino that people like to talk for that for weeks after they return. Have been that your case?
I haven't really that much. Um, and it's interesting because people will ask me, and it's not like, for me, it wasn't like another trip where I went to here, I went to there, I saw this, I saw that, I went to a concert, this was so exciting. It's kind of hard to describe because it's so personal. It's
Okay.
in of course I tell them that it was really great and they should do it, but I haven't really gotten into a lot of detail
Okay.
because a lot of it was just like time passing and thinking, and it just personally, experiential, and it's kind of hard to convey that to someone else, what that was like.
Yes, that's absolutely correct. What I mean is the emotional part that you see so many emotion for you while you're walking that you see that people all around the Camino is happy. The people are is really happy over
Yes,
there.
everyone's happy. I never saw anyone having an argument, or everyone was just so happy. There were groups of people that were just singing. And sometimes if you were tired. I mean, I didn't get all that tired, but I was having some back pain, but someone just walks up next to you and just saying Buen Camino and smiling at you, is enough to like give you some more energy,
Yeah.
and it was just, it was just personal. It wasn't really anything I could really describe to people. You just have to do it yourself, obviously.
Yeah. And if you do another Camino, which Camino would you do next?
Well, I was thinking of the Camino Português. Um, if I took enough time off, maybe for Porto. Uh,
Okay.
I think there's another recommended starting spot about halfway between from Porto, but
Okay.
that would be about almost a 3-week experience.
And will you do a walking again?
Yes, I'm actually a horseback rider, and at first I thought, wow, it'd be really cool to do it by horseback. And I checked into that, and I saw one or two individuals on horses, but um, there wasn't really any outfit doing it by horses. I also bicycle a lot, and there were a
Okay.
number of bicycle groups, but I didn't feel like, you know, traditionally people walked the Camino or rode horses. And I felt riding horses was, honored the tradition, but that riding a bicycle for me just took away from the original pilgrimage notion of it. So I would
Okay.
walk again.
Okay, that's nice to know. And then any tips that you would recommend to somebody that have not done the Camino that would like to do it next year? What would you recommend to that person?
Well, I would definitely recommend researching footwear. And there's lots, it's mind-boggling how much information there is. I mean, there are whole little books just on what footwear to wear on the Camino. Um, and to try it out first, make sure you break it in, make sure something doesn't rub. I had a whole arsenal of salves and tapes and band-aids and toe spacers and things, which I used a good bit of. Um, Oh, I just want to say one other thing. I was very impressed with the pharmacies that were in each town, at least one or two, or they were kind of like Starbucks in the bigger towns. How well equipped they were, and they had whole sections just on things for feet.
Yeah.
So if you do run in, insoles, if you do run into trouble, if you make it through to the next pharmacy, you'll get set up. So footwear, making sure things don't rub. You don't want to wear jean shorts, that rub on your thighs uh, and it never rained on us until just after we got to Santiago. It rained for just a little bit of time, but we always carried a poncho, make sure you have plenty of water. Um, yeah, just know what you're getting into, which is very easy to do because there's so much literature and information on it.
Well, Jan, thank you very much for all the information that you have provided to us today. We appreciate a lot. That information for sure is going to be helpful for people that would like to do the Camino in the future. And Pilgrims, thank you for watching us again. And please add your comments on the comment sections on every video. That way we know if you have any question, we can ask those questions to future people on the interviews. Thank you very much and buen camino.
Buen camino, Efrain.